One of the key aspects in artificial intelligence, machine learning, in the last few years has been around productionizing and scaling the use of these services. And for that, at Data Futurology, we've created an event which we've run a couple years now. We call it Advancing AI. So we want to be advancing the deployment of these systems in production at scale. We also want to advance the use of these capabilities throughout the organizations. And we always cover the most relevant and best topics that we can find. And we're definitely keen to see you there in the next one. This year's 2022's Advancing AI is going to be in person in Melbourne, April 6th and 7th at Crown Promenade. I hope to see you there. The lineup is looking fantastic. Please check it out on datafuturology.com. It's all going to be geared around productionizing these systems, scaling them, and increasing the adoption of AI within organizations and outside. April 6th and 7th, Melbourne, Crown Promenade, Advancing AI with Data Futurology. Thank you so much. See you there. I wanted to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading data specialist recruitment business. They are experts in recruitment strategy and delivery for analytics and data teams. They are the go-to recruitment business for all your data roles in Australia, and they can help both with permanent hires and short-term project-focused data resources. I've used Talent Insights in the past, and I've always found them fantastic to work with. Visit them at talentinsights.com.au. Hi, this is Felipe Flores. Welcome to Data Futurology. Today, I'm sitting with a very special guest, Anuj Anand. He is the Chief Information Officer from Ausenco, recently-ish back in Australia. So we are very excited to have you on the show. Anuj, how are you doing today?
Felipe, pleasure to be here, mate. Super excited. I know we had a conversation a few weeks ago, and I actually went and listened to some of the podcasts since then. So really excited for today, mate, and doing great.
Mate, same here. Very, very excited to get a chance to dive into both your experience, your learning, and everything that we're going to be talking about today. Really, really good. I wanted to start by asking you if you can tell us a little bit about your background and how you went from working in remote mine sites all the way to CIO.
It's an interesting journey, Felipe, to say the least. I'm more than happy. And again, just before we kick things off, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and it's an honor as well, Felipe. So
that's very kind, mate. No, pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, mate. Yeah, well, it's an interesting story, and I'm sure pretty different to most CIO journeys, and maybe some similarities. And I still question myself sometimes on whether it was the right decision, but every decision is the right decision. You got to back yourself, right?
Exactly.
So I actually started from the floor in a company now, Rio Tinto Alcan, that started, as an instrumentation engineer. And part of what I had to do was, in my first role, was more than 1,000 data sheets. So if you think about that typical graduate, getting in big Excel files, and you have to just go in and input data, right? So that was really the job. And that's where I started. I spent a fair few years as an instrumentation electrical engineer, working on a few control systems and programming. Where I started finding myself different to the others was, instead of just going through and, doing that data entry, I kept thinking, and it could just be an inherent laziness, but I kept thinking to myself that there's a better way to do this, right? Like, why am I going to sit here, look at a P&ID drawing, look at someone else's data, and then go type it in, then check, and then go back? So in essence, what I ended up doing, and I don't recommend this to a lot of people, but actually, I don't recommend it. Now, as a CIO, I don't recommend it at all to anyone. But back in the day, what I did do was gain access to the database and just wrote my own queries and managed to populate the data in the database, in the Excel files, about 1,200 and something of them, just using the data that was already available. And, just realized that in every one of these processes and every one of these groups or journeys that you get on, I kept finding out that there's got to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
Like why don't we keep challenging that status quo? And that's what I kept doing, and created some software programs through the journey. I know one of the ones that I worked on was related to data management and revision control, and one of our clients found that really useful for one of the big projects we did in Peru, close to home for you, Felipe. But
Yeah.
yeah, the project's actually at a really high altitude. I think it's higher than Machu Picchu in terms of altitude, or around a similar sort of
Wow.
level. So it's a big project. It's a big mine on the side of a mountain. That's really what we do, right? Is do some exciting and very innovative projects. And I think that really gets driven down to some of the work that we do. Is finding a better way to do things, and there's always a better way to do it. So that's another program that I created, and I think it stood out. With the client actually saying, "Hey, this is really great," and we ended up. They nominated us for an award for this, in terms of innovation and ideas, and we ended up winning the award. And people started taking notice, going, "Hey, who created this?" And I literally started doing this at the back of, just working day to day and going, "There's got to be a better way to do things, right? Why is everyone checking all this information every time we go through something?" So
Yeah.
so we did it, and I think it stood out to a few of the leaders within the business that there might be some potential here, for a different role. And kudos to that thinking, right? To be able to say, well, there's an aptitude there, there's a hunger there, there's the work that's being put in at different, there's a future leadership role, and that's always been recognized, even earlier days, that there was a future leadership role. As part of what they would call a high potential cohort initially, but a very different channel, right? The channel of growth was towards an engineering manager or design manager or leader, that sort of versus IT. And, I got called in. I remember this, and I was telling you the story, Felipe. I got called into what I would classify as the principal's office in 2015, 2016. Got the tap on the shoulder saying, "Hey, Anuj, some of the C-suite, our CIO at the time, the CTO at the time, they want to have a chat with you." And I was like, what have I done? I'm in trouble for something, right? What would you think? You had no idea, and get called in, and I can see a few of them sitting in this meeting room, and it was the EA that tapped me on the shoulder and said they're waiting to talk to you in a meeting room. And how the office was set up was level 5 was this real corporate area that you never really need to go to. So I go up the stairs thinking that's it. I should have probably packed a few of my things and paperwork.
I would have been so nervous.
Yeah, that's what your thinking goes to. Is like, what have I done? Have I said something to someone? Have I done something? Probably won't even get to go back to my desk. I've heard these stories, but never experienced it. It was pretty just over 30, I think, at the time. And got called in, and they're like, "Oh, Anuj, how's things going? Congratulations on this award. That's great. What are your future plans?" And I'm like, going to get to part of the roadmap, that you would think you guys would know, they're like, no, we've got a different plan for you. What about you look to, as a goal, maybe in 5 to 10 years, whatever that time frame is, you move towards something a bit more lofty, like a CIO.
Awesome.
I said, yeah. And I said, "Oh, that sounds exciting. What else is it?" Like, "Oh yeah, just think about it. Have you ever thought about moving to IT?" And sitting on that side at one point of time, you think about IT, as a back office function, right? You go, they're the guys, that a lot of the time, creating barriers versus, enablers, and things like that. That was my view on IT. And I'm happy to say that I feel like we've changed some of that within the business. But that's how I thought about IT. And I was like, while this seems great, it's also, did I ever want to be part of IT? And they joked with me. They're like, all right, you can have a think about it and come back and give us an answer in 10 minutes. I was like, yeah. So I said, then they laughed, because obviously I was nervous, right? And they laughed. They're like, no, we're joking. But have a think about it, and how about we set up a meeting in a week to talk about it, and what it entails, in a bit more detail. And you'll obviously have a lot of questions coming up. And so I had a few questions at the time. And then in a week, I had more questions, it's like, what's the roadmap look like? Like, I don't know enough about IT. I know a bit about, programming from my background and, working in control systems. That's what I know about. And they're like, don't worry, we'll help you learn. You'll be mentored by one of the VPs in the business right now in the group. And, so you'll have enough there to learn and grow. And so I said, oh, sounds exciting. And they're like, all right, but, before we kick things off, and like you commit to this, like, why don't you go and think about, what's Anuj's view on what technology will look like at Ausenco in 5 years? And, I was like, okay. And they're like, yeah, think big, like, what do you think we're going to invest in, and what's going to be the future of technology in 5 years? And, this is 2015, right? So I'm like, technology in 5 years, I think there's going to be drones flying everywhere. Yeah. Everyone's going to be wearing VR glasses. And they're like, come up with a strategy, right? What would you think, Felipe, in 5 years? Like, where would you go?
Yeah, like exactly. Like the world's your oyster. Like 5 years is a time that's kind of like long enough that anything is possible, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it's like 5 years is a good time, and, there's some reality kicking in at that point of time. There was a lot of stuff on Google Glass at the time starting to pop up, and not Meta, but, there was this VR world like kicking off, games starting to kick off. And, so there's all these exciting things, and drones were starting to become, popular. So I went back and I was like, this is great, like such a good opportunity. Like they're going to ask me what I think, and I'm going to get all these cool toys, and, it's going to be amazing. So I went back and, they gave me 3 months to come up with my IT strategy, and what we're going to invest in as Ausenco in over that period of time. And
this, obviously, it was the first time that you were doing a strategy of this level, right? It was first foray.
Felipe, this was the first time I was doing a strategy, not of this guy. So as you can imagine, I finished the strategy, what I thought was a strategy, in 6 weeks, and I said to the EA, because that's what the communication channel was at the time, I said, I'm actually ready to present. So they organized a meeting and sat down, and, I went through my presentation. This is how things are going to look. You're going to have these drones flying everywhere. You're going to have like VR glasses. You can visit the site in virtual reality. You're going to have all these cool things. And it was like about 40 minutes of me talking and presenting this, and I could see their faces, right? Like this, when a presentation isn't going well.
Yeah.
It wasn't going well. So, starting to get more nervous, and needless to say, Felipe, that it ended up with, look, I know we didn't give you, I remember this quite clearly. Neil said to me at the time, he said, I know we didn't give you enough of what we wanted to see, but this is definitely what we didn't want to see. And I was like, wow, this is pretty harsh. And, so got some really, really strong, realistic, tangible feedback saying, this is not a strategy. Like, why don't you read about what a strategy is, and, start from there, and like then develop it, and don't rush into this. We're giving you like a big opportunity here, right? Like, you don't have to come back to us. Like, you're not trying to meet a milestone and, come back to us in 6 weeks with something that's half baked, or, not a strategy, to say the least. So, And, you got to think about it. If this is what you think is the future and stuff, do you really want to be in IT? And so I went back and, I was pretty disappointed in myself, one. And the second thing I was really disappointed in is, just feedback was so raw and realistic, like while it was tangible, I was like, wow, this level is a lot harsher than, than what I'm used to as well, right? Yeah, there's no sugarcoating anything. There's no like, oh, well, why don't you think about this? This is all right. There's none of that babying or, that warm feedback and, like, Luke, it's direct. So, I went back and I worked in it, and I was thinking to myself, I'm going to present and just show that I can do this, right? Like it was a challenge for me, and that was a challenge for myself, that I'm going to show that I'm going to do the best strategy, but I'm not going to move into IT. Like I'm not going to give, one, them the satisfaction, or, two, for myself, even just go, I don't think I was ready. I didn't think I was ready to do it. It wasn't the role for me, but I wanted to show this whiz bang amazing strategy, or this document that I was going to come up with. And I did, I started looking at, what's a good strategy? What makes a good strategy? Like you've got that vision, like how do you actually make it tangible? How do you reach those targets? While drones are great, but like how do you reach that? Like what systems have you got right now to get to that point of time? And so I actually painted a really good picture, roadmaps on what systems we've got, how we're going to make data, like our biggest asset, and why it's really important, how that's going to lead to something that you're passionate about in AI, and painted that picture. And while I was presenting, just that look of, satisfaction on their faces, the smiles, like, that, I think it was the smile and like, we've made the right choice, or, this is not as bad as obviously they thought after that first presentation. And obviously I accepted the roles, got some good feedback then as well. And, started putting into place a strategy that we started that long ago. So in the end, yes, everything works out, but definitely one of those stories where it's taken like a massive kick in the guts to get to where you need to.
Mate, I'm so impressed with both your resilience and your motivation, your drive, your grit, and also so impressed with the leadership of the organization to find and nurture the talent internally, and in your case, like to provide the opportunities in such a clear, direct way with the feedback necessary for people to grow, because it's I think it's tough to grow if you're not getting that sometimes, gut wrenching feedback, and often, if you don't hear it firsthand, it's going to take a long time to get that realization and that growth. But they gave it to you straight, and like you showed why they were picking you as a result. Like you just like took it from one level to the next so quickly.
Yeah, and, I think I've seen a couple of others since that point of time, but it's a good case study in, that recognition. And, I'm sitting in a C-suite role now, you're recognizing the, not to big note myself anyway, but you're recognizing the Anujas in the team, you're recognizing the Anujas in the other groups, like actually living it and going through the growth and understanding it not that long ago. It's still pretty fresh, and, you can see pretty quickly like what needs to happen to some of these younger folk. While I don't totally agree in that really harsh, realistic feedback all the time, sometimes it is required, right? Like sometimes it is required and it is needed. And but it's one of those stories like, yes, I learned from it, but will everyone else learn in a similar way? And it's again understanding the people on the team, the other people, like how they're going to learn and how they're going to accept it.
Yeah, exactly, and that's such a critical point of leadership, to understand, how to get the best in people, and how they're going to react to different approaches. And some people can take the harsh feedback. Others, you have to be a bit softer, but it also changes over time. Like at one point, somebody can take a harsh feedback, but the same person at another point in time, you have to be sort of nicer or softer with it. So it's great that they saw that in you seeing it in others. It's a great culture of the organization, and it must it must create a lot of loyalty and a lot of long tenures. How do you think about that?
Um, so interesting point. I was actually in a conversation last week with some other CIOs and global. So we had a few people from the States, some big companies in there, talking about some of the challenges, and um, from AT&T, Google, like I said, and the challenges that they spoke about, obviously a lot bigger than Ausenco, but some of the very similar challenges. We're talking about cybersecurity. As of today, as you see things happening overseas, with the war and cyber attacks, how important cybersecurity is to organizations in the world. And while there's so many similarities, there's so many differences. And they spoke about one of the key challenges being recruitment, right? Like try to find and retain talent.
Yes.
And I put my hand up saying, well, I don't know if we're doing something different or if we got the right people, but we've got not an opposite problem as such, but I think it's a blessing more than anything else. We've been able to build our team, and as I look at my team globally, a lot of the people are around. Some of them have reached their 15-year, 10-year. We've got someone that's been at the organization for 40 years,
Wow.
and 30, like within this team, and have grown and have changed roles. And most of the team, there's some new people that keep coming in, obviously, but most of them have been there for at least a year or two now. And a majority of the key people have been here for about 8-10 years, and that's good to see. And that they stay, that they're challenged, that they're motivated. It's not like we're not doing anything and they're just comfortable, because that's not the case with everything going on. But that's an opposite problem, and it actually goes to that point that you just made, Felipe, on loyalty. And that they're valued, they're contributing. As the organization's grown and the team's grown, like, yes, we've had to, I've had to change the way I work. When I was a director in the team, in IT, and that's where I started from. I actually knew everyone, and I know everyone's story, right? You know what's going on in almost everyone's life, and like everyone that you work with. And our team's probably close to 50 people now globally. And I realized, as I moved into the role, that I might not be able to do that. And it was still important to me that I still kept some key connections. And I try my best. As COVID started, those conversations that you have, you could just walk into the IT area, be like, hey, mate, Richard, how's things going? Or, what's up? And all those conversations stopped, right?
Yeah.
And so I started making a point to call someone from the team every week, whether it was like pick a name out of a hat, or just go through the list and be like, oh, I haven't caught up with so-and-so for a while. Let me just call them up, and see how things are going, and while, the last few months has been pretty tough and difficult, it's to do that, but it's something that we started with, but that's a conversation. And again, as you move roles and leaders, and for your listeners, I know there's a lot of young folk on your that subscribe to the podcast, and their demographic, and trying to learn and grow. That's something that you got to take into account, that you're going to lose some of those key relationships. You're going to have to learn and grow as your team grows, right?
Exactly, man. That is so interesting and so well done to continue to, be deliberate and proactive about staying connected with the team, obviously during this tough time. I think that's really great and really shows the human side and how much it's valued, both in your leadership and in your organization. I wanted to ask you about the tenure side. I think that in the tech space, the average tenure in Australia is about 3 years of something like that, like very, I think, like quite low. What So I wanted to ask you about the benefits of longer tenures. What are the and you can give me pros and cons if you want, but what are the benefits that you're seeing from having longer tenures in this space?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, and as I reflected it on the conversation that I had with the other CIOs as well, is there one better than the other? Is really the question. And um, I've got a personal view on it, and obviously I'm a living example on my personal opinion and view on it, that tenure does make a difference, and but I'm not saying that's 100% the right thing, right? Like I said, in terms of pros, I feel like the biggest pro is the key stakeholders, the systems, what's needed to make a change and how you can influence the change and how you can actually get change happening, to the right effect. In my own experience, like I know the business, I know what's happened in the business to make certain changes. I know the people that you need to influence to change direction or pivot, and all those things play a massive part in being able to make a difference. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that tenure has to go along with it. People understand the systems, they understand the legacy, they understand the decisions that have gone into making, the decisions and where you've got to. Ausenco went through a period of time where we weren't investing in systems and technology as much because the markets weren't great. We didn't have as many projects. So there was a reason for it. We have people come in and go, oh, maybe we should just do this. Let's spend $1 million to do X, and we should turn everything off and do this. And like, no, that's not really the right process, because, we've spent an effort and, we've gone through this period, which is why things are the way they are. You can't just hit a switch and, turn something off. It's actually needed for a certain reason. And, some of the team, I speak about the gentleman that's been there for 40 years, he can go back all that while and tell you why things are there, and like what software is required for this legacy system and why it's on this server. And, it's important, it's context, and I think I touched upon something earlier with, the perception of IT, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the perception of IT previously within our business, and I think some other businesses, has been, they're the behind the keyboard, they'll plug in some cables and, that they're not like a partner. And what we've managed to do is change to be a business partner, because we've got people like this on the team. We've got people that actually understand and can have the conversation saying, this is why you've got this legacy system. This is why this information is there, and I think that's a big pro as well. We can sit down, my background within, coming from the floor, and certain people that we've got in our team that actually used to work on the tools. It's a big advantage to build that business partnership to get, make progress really. And with the shorter tenure, one big advantage I find is you get a lot of new thinking coming in from external, because sometimes you can be walking or looking at a problem or working with blinkers on, so, because you don't know what else is happening outside, so there's learnings that, we drive within our team. And, we've got some people on the team that are, including myself, always reading about what's new, what's out there, what's happening, what are some of the case studies that have been successful and not successful, whether it's in the AI space, whether it's in, drones. Like, obviously you get a lot of calls from companies all the time and every day saying, hey, this is what we've got this new technology. I think we worked out that it was up to about 40 a week that we were getting, these companies, which is high. Yeah, but it's also like making sure that we are staying cognizant of what's happening around the place, and you're not working within those blinkers on to take advantage of some of that learning. And it's not like we haven't got anyone new. We do get in new people. Almost every year we've had some new starters to get some insight into what else is happening. What other procedures, what are the challenges that are happening outside. Some of these conversations that you and me are having. And just seeing like what those challenges are, and how do we evolve to I guess balance that nuance of not having as many new people within the team. But that's a big advantage I think that I've found, with getting new people within the group, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I love that, in discussing the benefits of the long tenure, you highlighted the impact, the ability for change, the knowing the history of why things happened, and then what it took to create change before, and what it'll take to create change now. Because there's so many people in our industries that get frustrated that sometimes the change is not there. That sometimes the technology or the algorithms are created, and that then there's low adoption, low amount of there's no engagement in the rollout and things like that, and people get frustrated and often jump ship. And sometimes like there's additional, obviously sometimes there's other reasons, but if there's good leadership and if things are going the right way, maybe a longer tenure can help on that side. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's, you very eloquently put, Felipe, in that um it's that situation where the frustration people have without being able to make change. And you see so many people that come into the company from other organizations, not within IT, or we call ourselves technology services solutions, or TSS, because it's expanded a lot more than being traditional IT. We're a newer model IT, we're front facing, working together to be a solution provider versus just that back end. But it's
Awesome.
really, yeah, you go and see like a lot of the places and hear a lot of these stories, with people like trying to achieve greatness when it comes to technology, right? You've got like, they really believe in a certain solution, are passionate about it, and they drive it, and then they see it not be successful just because of simple things, like while the technology was great and, works fine, just the culture of adoption and that change management hasn't happened, and hasn't been thought about, whereas while we've got some effort in this space, with change management, and I wouldn't say we're the greatest when it comes to it, but we also understand, who to influence or where to influence to make some of that change, which is a bit different, and you're not going to get everyone on side all the time, but
Yeah.
If you get the key stakeholders and the leaders within the business that will push that change down, it will be successful. And I hear it from so many people that come to our team, and that I meet externally, from larger organizations than ours, and much bigger teams, with how frustrating it is to just make simple changes and get buy-in from key stakeholders. So that's exactly right that you said, that's probably why there's a high turnover in certain areas, because they go in and they expect to achieve this greatness that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the expectation is where it sits. Oh, mate, I completely agree. The other one that I picked up from what you were saying, and I'm keen to explore a bit further, is around the change of IT, of going from a back office to a partner to solutions. I assume that with that it comes a much more agile style of delivery. How have you created and helped navigate that change for the organization?
It's always a hard one, right? Like, you can have the best intentions and make the right effort, but it's with any partnership, it takes two sides to really work to it, right? So the intention, often I feel, being right is the main criteria. We've got the right intention, you're going to keep working for something because your intention's right. You believe in that particular point, you've got that belief that you're doing the right thing, it's been driven and supported by your leadership team and your management line, and that's really what we do. I think we call it business partnering within our team. It's something that we're all passionate about as a leadership team. We all try our best. We've got now, it's been a work in progress, so we've had some very trying times to get to this point, but it's also one of those things where, we've got business leaders from my team now that sit in regional leadership groups, and I think that's amazing, to have a seat at some of those tables where you're actually making those decisions on projects, and now having like an IT stakeholder there to say, well, yes, that's possible, but it's actually going to take a lot longer because the simple examples, like I've heard so many people talk about this, and the simple examples of an office move, that you're moving offices or you're growing to a new office or changing locations, and people are working in the background for months knowing that this is happening, and they've got commitment, and then the IT guy gets a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, we're doing this, can you make sure this happens within the next month or two, and make sure the internet's available, and you plan to move everyone's computer across. And this is literally a story that I heard recently from someone, and I was like, wow, you weren't part of that. Like, no, we just got told, I can't say the company's name because they're pretty close to us, but luckily for us, we are part of these conversations, and most of the leaders know that IT is a key stakeholder now, and I think that's progress compared to what we've ever done before. That's huge to make things successful within any organization. Like, we're never going to know everything about everything. Like, I don't know about why the project delivery team needs to have a process a certain way. But I might know a bit about the instrumentation, because I've lived and grown through that framework. I know a bit about the design tools because I've spent time there, but, and other people within the business, but you're going to need someone from the business to actually tell you what the key problem is and work with you to come up with a solution. So that's something as part of our digital transformation journey that, as we do projects and, embark on those smaller projects, whether it's, taking away a paper process or, a new starter form that's now digital, whatever it is, ensuring that we've actually got the key business partners, whether it's someone from HR, whether it's someone from the project delivery team, working with the director of digital transformation to come up with the solution and implement it. While we'll help the technology and the container, you need someone from the business to actually say, these are the problems, and, whether or not we've ticked the right boxes to address that problem.
Yeah, exactly. Mate, that is excellent. I wanted to see if we can change tack, and I wanted to ask you about the AI side and how you guys have what your foray into AI has been. How did it start? What is the adoption and use cases have been? If you can tell us a little bit about your AI journey, I guess.
Yeah, look, AI is where I would say a lot of our, for most organizations, I would say the future is really within this space, so, whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 10 years from now, I think the investments we're making today and the value and the efficiencies we're going to get for our business and potentially a lot of other ones is going to be within this AI space, so from a few years ago, we started working with some of the big AI players to help us come up with this journey and what the roadmap's going to look like. So it was actually just pre-COVID, Feb 2019, Feb 2020, that we sat down in San Francisco, before all the lockdowns happened. We had a few of the C team, our CIO at the time, I wasn't in the role, CTO, CEO and COO, all in San Francisco with, we spent a day with one of the key players in the AI space, the AI godfather, godmother, whatever you want to call it, with Watson. We spent a day with Watson in their laboratory with IBM Watson. And what the reason for that and why we actually did that was, to get some of that thinking. We spoke about business partnering and, coming up with the right ideas. So that day, and looking at basically what the art of the possible was, like what level is AI up to right now? What are some of the case studies? What are some of the successful example and use cases of AI? So that really started getting, our creative juices flowing, within our business. What's going to make that difference? Yeah. What's going to be that disruptor within that AI space that's going to make a difference to our industry, in our business, and that's really what we did. And we came up with 8 different areas of work that were going to make that huge difference for us. And that's where we started, we've started working on, and there's a bit happening in the background to ensure that we reach some of those goals. They're not getting to the point as quickly as they needed to. And there's multiple reasons with this. And I think the AI space, there's a bit of an AI trap here, right? And I've heard of other companies, and I've spoken to multiple other CEOs and CTOs, et cetera, across the board, in Australia, where from the really big to the really small, and talk about their investments. And, some of the really big companies, they're happy to invest, tens of millions of dollars. Yeah. And they understand that, there's that probably reality that out of the 100 projects that they actually do within this AI space, or, we're talking about 8 within ourselves. I spoke to one of the big companies in the oil and gas space with, they've got 20 of these projects, and they're actually investing a lot of money in these 20 projects. And they're cognizant of the fact that they're probably going to fail in all 20 of them. Yeah. That they're not going to reach that tangible value, which is fine for them, and all they're doing is ensuring that, they're actually testing it out, trying to find that right use case. And they might get to 20 right now. They'll do 20 next year. They'll do 20 the year after that. And they're going to get this one that's going to be amazing, right? And save the world, and is going to be disruptive. Yeah. Not the case for a lot of companies that don't have that much money to invest in this space. There is that reality check where, we'd like to spend that money, but we don't have the resources to do it. We've also got people that are billable to projects and doing a lot of work across the board. So the way I've approached it and the way we've done it over here is to look at ways that we can containerize the risk. So let's go and test out, build that MVP, build that case to make sure that it is a reality. But instead of going through the whole way and realizing at the end that, was or wasn't the use case, we're doing that like a lot earlier on, and I hate using the analogy because it has the word fail in it a lot, but fail fast, fail cheap, fail easy, fail early. But, it's about that. There is a piece of, let's make sure that we minimize our risk, our exposure. Let's just do it, but actually get it done to a realistic perspective. Yeah. And understand where that success or that failure is going to be. If it is successful and we've managed to test it out, then let's go to the next phase, and then the next phase, and let's approach it like that versus, let's get it done and get it all together. So we're doing it, one project at a time. We're going through, we've already hit our, failure project, which wasn't as successful. And, we find out pretty quickly that it's not going to be successful. And not because the technology wasn't going to be successful. The technology was, the way it would work in practicality and reality wasn't going to be successful. Would take a lot more time. So that's an important realization as well, that, the real reality of it all in practice wasn't going to be tangible. And whether we had the business case that we'd save on X amount of resources, we realized, actually, in a way, then the project wasn't, or the technology didn't work as well as it was supposed to, right? So, so we realized quickly, and we're doing, we're making decisions now where we're going, before we do anything else, we need to build this amazing data lake house, a data lake to to ensure everything's connected and ensure we've got that springboard now, or the catalyst to jump into any AI project, because I find that's the basis of it all.
Definitely. That's great. That is great. And can you tell us a bit about some of the applications or some of the areas that you're focusing on, or how you're choosing what to focus on?
We can't get into too much detail of the projects because we feel like these are going to be the game changers in the future.
Definitely.
If that's okay, Felipe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no pressure from that side. Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely in the space of AI, we're working out, where the initial investment needs to be, and ensuring that, while we're making the investment, we've prioritized the projects for the biggest wins, right? Like where do we feel, out of these 8 projects, we've actually prioritized from 1 to 8 to see, whether it's, which was the first project that I spoke about, literally the aim of that project was to just see if the AI piece and the partners we were working with were the right ones. That was the aim of it. So while the technology might have not ticked all the boxes, we also worked out very quickly whether we had the right partners, whether we had the right stakeholders, whether we've got the right team internally to make sure that's success.
Yes.
And I think all those things were really important. So while we're not going ahead with the project, we've actually learned so much, in that not going ahead, that's made us pivot and make decisions today to ensure that the next one's incrementally successful, and then the one after that is that, great gold nugget that we find, to use a mining term.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the cultural component is always a big part of digital transformations in general, and definitely of AI adoption. How are you focusing on the cultural side to help make the AI adoption and the digital transformation a success?
Yeah, so culture, again, when it comes to change management, is the most critical piece, right? We've spoken about this through this conversation already. It's been mentioned a few times, through change management, in various aspects and areas, as we've spoken about this, having the key stakeholders is imperative to any of this. If your leaders and, your stakeholders, again, the right stakeholders, there's a big piece of stakeholder management in here. You need the right stakeholders for your project, and starting early, influencing people and bringing them along for that journey to show them what that success is going to look like, right? You shouldn't just be the one drinking the Kool-Aid and looking at this vision. You need to be able to communicate to people this vision and ensure that they see why you're seeing this to be such a big deal, right? Like if you believe that it's going to be game changing, they should believe it too. I think we spoke about this a bit last time, that startup culture. If I wanted seed funding for something, I need to be able to explain and, to the investors, and it's a lot about that. You want to come across being passionate about it. They need to see your vision, and literally the people within the organization or your stakeholders are your investors. They're your seed funding, they're your venture capitalists that are coming in to invest in this project, whether it's not financially or whether it is financially, to, just believing that the project's going to be successful. If you can get them on side and believing that project's going to be successful and they're going to be, reaping the rewards from it, 100% you're gonna be successful in your change management process.
Awesome. That's great. I agree. That is very well said. Very well put. I wanted to ask you about the collaboration. Something I know that you're big on is collaboration and brainstorming and whiteboarding and bringing the team together to get things. To solve problems, come up with solutions, develop new methods. How have you navigated that in the last couple of years?
You had to ask the tricky question, the hard-hitting question, Felipe. So
couldn't help myself.
Yeah, couldn't help yourself, could you? Well, it's I personally still believe that having people in a room together, whether we're a global team, right? That's the reality of the situation. You're never going to have everyone at the room at the same time, or very rarely like have everyone in the room at the same time physically, right? So,
yeah.
While technology has been amazing, we've got so many pieces of really valuable technology. We've got whiteboards, you've got other candidates coming in, that you can do post-its and, like put comments, and you can actually have like avatars walking around. I saw recently with these are all great, but I still feel for some of the really big things, having people in a room together is invaluable. And I know coming from a technology role, people are gonna laugh and probably crucify me, but
not at all.
There's a big piece to this that you miss out on if you've not got it. So I think one of the things that I ended up doing last year was ensuring, at least in the regions, we got people together. So whether it's not everyone sitting in the room, everyone in Australia is sitting together, everyone in Canada is sitting together, and everyone in South America is sitting together.
Nice.
So you're still getting some of that energy. You're still getting some of the benefits of working off each other, even though not everyone was in the room together. And I think that was quite advantageous.
Mate, that is excellent. That is great. And yeah,
this is probably going to be where the comments blow up, on the site out. Yeah.
Well, I gotta say, like, I agree. Like, it's difficult having that connection, that relationship, and that momentum in a virtual setting. And I might be old school here. Maybe I'm getting old, mate. But yeah, I still feel
you
that.
And me both, Felipe. It's we're actually at a social dinner, and someone asked me about going into the office, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going into the office, and I'm telling my team to come into the office. And this friend of mine was like, you're nuts, mate. Who goes into the office? I was like, I like to see people.
Yeah, same. It's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
And mate, the last bit that I wanted to ask you about is views on diversity. I know that this is something up there for you. Tell us about your bit about your views on diversity.
Yeah, again, one of those things that's imperative to success. It's a hard one to do properly, for sure. But
yes,
the value that you can get out of these teams, and having that diverse feedback, again, if we look at it just at the start of this conversation, and some of what we spoke about, having those diverse opinions and views and experiences that people have, whether it's having the ratio set correctly, whether it's your background being culturally different, it's each one of those experiences plays such an important part in your opinions and your working today, and who you are, as people and personalities today. That's played such a big part of it. And, what you contribute can be so different based on your past experiences, and big believer in it. And, ensured as much of our team as possible is diverse, and comes from various backgrounds. And I think it's important for success for, any of the people that are on your podcast. And, one of the bases, to ensure that you're coming up with the right ideas and, for success in the future for those projects that you work on.
I love it, mate. So true. And something to invest in early. Hey, when setting up a team or in a new role, definitely like double down on diversity early on.
Yeah. And it'll be a challenge early on. Within technology, it's difficult to get some of the diversification as we talk about it. It's a tough one, but it's worth that effort early on, to be put in to ensure that success.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, this has been phenomenal. Anuj, thank you so much. Thanks so much for your time, for sharing your insights and your journey. Mate, there's so much to learn from everything that you've done and your approaches. I really can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing everything with us.
Felipe, it's been a pleasure, mate, and such a great conversation. I could keep talking, and I hope it's a conversation we can continue, and I hope it was worthwhile. But again, thank you so much for having me, mate. Really appreciate it.
Oh, mate, absolutely phenomenal, and definitely keen to continue it, and hopefully next time in person. That'd be great.
That'll be great, mate. Let's do part 2 in person.
Love it. Thank you so much, mate. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope that you got a lot out of this discussion. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find out about the challenges that leaders have in the analytics and AI space. And that's what we're trying to share in Data Futurology. So please like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Thank you so much.